The MC's arrival in Tuohai Prefecture just escalated everything. That stark contrast between the Han tribe's meticulous order and the Tang tribe's chaotic farming was such a perfect visual. And Tang Yao, bless her, getting those limited edition binoculars. The MC knows how to play the game. But it's the Bamboo Island strategy session that truly took my breath away. The detailed prefecture planning, naming each one with such foresight, Xinhua Prefecture so direct, and assigning specific way units with their unique strengths. It's not just conquest, it's empire building on a preemptive strike. I loved how the MC is already thinking about troop composition, even planning to pull in Tang and Shin. Native forces. It's this blend of shrewd diplomacy, economic leverage, and overwhelming military preparation that's so compelling. That upcoming military parade isn't just for show. It's a calculated power play aimed squarely at the Tang Tribe and any dissenters. How will Tang Ji react to this invitation after such a display? And can Shuya really deliver those crucial native allies without a hitch? Zhudu watched you and Zhudao playing off each other and thought to himself, "All right, Chief, you're the brains of this operation, so you call the shots." Anyway, when it comes to the big picture, the Chief's thinking has always been way ahead of ours. Since he's made the call, it's probably pretty much on the money. Still, he had a nagging, difficult question on his mind that he hadn't dared to voice. Now that you'd finished speaking, he really couldn't hold it in any longer. "Chief, you've laid out these grand plans for Zhudao Island, 6 prefectures, 6 garrisons, all clearly arranged. But what about our Hu Ben Guard? Are we going to miss out on the action again?" Shui Tu was practically bursting with anticipation. "Yeah, Chief. And what about us, the brothers of the Fubo Navy Guard? What are your orders for us?" Shu Da, who was standing nearby, quickly chimed in. This was an island assault after all. He, the naval commander, couldn't just be left twiddling his thumbs on the shore. "Of course not." You chuckled, clearing your throat to reveal the plan. "You still haven't quite caught on, kid. Here's the script. We make an aerial insertion. Oh no, I mean, we land at the envoy's port, then sweep across Zhudao Island from one end to the other, steamrolling everything. In our path like lightning, every piece of territory we conquer, we leave a garrison behind to secure it and consolidate our rear. By the time we push through to Jiahai Prefecture, which is the main stronghold of the Shin tribe's leadership, we'd only have the 3,000 men of the Fei Xiang Guard left. Do you really think I'd fight a battle where our advantage is so slim, basically just asking for trouble? Oh, I get it. Chief, you mean our Hu Ben Guard? Shui Tu slapped his thigh, the realization dawning on him. Exactly. You snapped your fingers? Your 4,000 Hu Ben Guards are all battle-hardened veterans with top-tier equipment. You, Shui Tu, as the overall commander of this campaign, must lead the Hu Ben Guard to be the main striking force every step of the way. No matter which prefecture we're attacking, the Hu Ben Guard must be the spearhead. That way, even when we reach the final Jiahai Prefecture, our Han tribe will still have at least 7,000 elite troops, more than enough to grind the remnants of the Shin tribe into the dust. Besides, your Hu Ben Guard, in terms of numbers, equipment, and experience, is the ace of aces. This time, you'll also be hauling 20 cannons around. The Hu Ben Guard will be our mobile artillery fortress. Many of those greenhorns are captives from the last Grasslands campaign. If we give them the cannons, firstly, they won't know how to use them properly. And secondly, I'd be on edge. You take the cannons, and while you're at it, keep an eye on those new recruits for me. As for Shu, D, you turn to the naval commander. Your Fubo Guard won't be making landings. Your main task is to escort our army brothers onto the island, and then provide long-range fire support from the sea. Let's call it a maritime BBQ for short. Once the campaign kicks off, you'll first lead the Fubo fleet to escort the troop. Transports for a beach landing. Then the fleet splits in two. One group will push west along Zhudao Island's north coast, covering the offensive in Yashan and Xianfeng prefectures, and finally, lie in wait east of Anqiao, Dark Bridge, for E, the signal for the general assault. You'll personally lead the other contingent, the flagship group. You'll have to take a wide detour, past Zhaoyang Prefecture on the eastern tip of Zhudao Island, and then sweep west along the south coast, providing heavy bombardment support for Guanhai and Jiahai prefectures on the southern front. Finally, you'll rendezvous with the main force from the northwest corner of Zhudao, on the other side of Anqiao. With land and sea forces coordinated, we'll finish them off in one fell swoop. Once the Shin tribe is completely crushed, you'll lead the fleet back in triumph. Also, even though you'll be hugging the coastline this time, it's still the open sea, not a bathtub. Get your men accustomed to the wind and waves early on. However, safety first. We'll have to postpone our attack until winter. Firstly, this gives us more time to train the new recruits and stockpile provisions and ammunition. Secondly, and most crucially, we need to avoid the summer typhoon season. The seas are calm in winter, allowing us to launch our offensive steadily. I certainly don't want our Navy's first major expedition to end with us feeding the fishes before we even meet the enemy, you said, though inwardly you were thinking, I absolutely cannot let the Han tribe repeat the fate of the Mongol Navy. They tried to cross the sea to attack Japan twice, and both times they ran straight into typhoons, the Divine Wind Express, which wiped out their entire army at sea and even led to that kamikaze worship over in Japan. Too bad for those World War II kamikaze pilots that the typhoons didn't have their backs anymore. Times change, and even heaven's preferences shift, I guess. Rest assured, Chief, I understand. I guarantee we'll intensify the fleet's sea training. Zhudao snapped to attention and saluted, though the expression on his face was a mixture of emotions, making it hard to tell if he was pleased or concerned. You understood his reservations. Shuetu and the army lads would be getting into the thick of it, fighting the enemy face to face, which was thrilling. Zhudao, on the other hand, would just be sailing around the island, essentially setting off fireworks. With current cannon technology, they could at best provide support up to 3 kilometers inland, firing solid iron balls, and the effectiveness, well, it was hard to put into words. Sailing warships were primarily designed for ship-to-ship combat at sea. Using them for shore bombardment was really stretching their capabilities. Seeing Zhudao's somewhat frustrated expression, an idea suddenly struck you. You slammed your hand on the table. I've got it. How about this? Split your fleet into 3 groups. The flagship and the 3-masted warships will still circle the island for bombardment, but the smaller vessels, those with 2 masts or fewer, can slip into the mouth of the Qingshui River, Clearwater River, and proceed along the inland waterways to provide close fire support for our ground troops. However, you won't be able to command this riverine fleet personally. You'll need to remain on the flagship to complete the overall encirclement. Besides, we're completely in the dark about the hydrographic conditions of the Qingshui River. Add to that the low rainfall in winter, meaning the river channel will likely be shallow. It's really hard to say how far 2-masted sailboats could even make it upstream. You stroked your chin, your mind racing. Before Zhudao could even respond, Zhuetu beside him got excited and slapped his thigh. Chief, that's a brilliant idea. The Shin tribe are farmers too. Their population is concentrated along the riverbanks. If gunboats can navigate the inland rivers, our fire support could cover most of the battlefields. We could unleash our cannons. To our heart's content. Zhudao, however, leaned over the map, tracing the Qingshui River with his finger. After analyzing it based on known water conditions, he shook his head, clearly unenthusiastic. I'm afraid it won't be very useful. Water flows downhill. Our gunboats would be going against the current, and the river channel gets narrower and shallower upstream. With winter being the dry season, I reckon we'd be burning incense and thanking our lucky stars if 2-masted sailboats could even accompany you as far as Xinhua Prefecture in the center of Zhudao Island. As for single-masted sailboats, they could at most push on to Guanhai Prefecture, but those little things have low freeboards and shallow drafts. While they're maneuverable, their stability as gun platforms would be ridiculously poor. Their holds are shallow too. You couldn't even fit cannons in them. If we were to forcibly mount cannons on deck, 1 fore and 1 aft for balance, I reckon a single shot would shake the little boat apart from its own recoil. Besides, The beam of a single-masted sailboat is probably too narrow to even accommodate. The recoil slide for a gun carriage. That's true. Hearing Zhudao's professional analysis, Shui Tu also deflated, having to admit that the naval commander knew what he was talking about. He had personally drilled with artillery. Naval gun mounts were different from their army's field gun carriages, but the principle of what happened inside the barrel was the same. With such powerful recoil, even a field gun carriage would jump back several meters. A naval gun would likely be similar. A single-masted sailboat was only so wide. It was probably narrower than the gun's recoil distance. How could you even mount such a cannon on it? If they were to use two-masted sailboats to attack Xinhua Prefecture, the army would still be concentrated at that point, at the peak of its strength, with strong troops and fierce firepower. Combined with the army's own artillery, who on the plains could withstand them? So, sending gunboats deep inland did indeed seem like gilding the lily. The three of them discussed it further, and this impromptu plan for a riverine fleet had to be scrapped. The operational plan would stick to your initial deployment. With the operational plan finalized, the next stage was the exciting distribution of equipment. At a wave of your hand, military supplies unloaded from the fleet piled up like mountains. Watching this spectacle, Shui Tu wished he could prostrate himself before you on the spot and shout 3 times, "The chief is mighty and generous." To put it bluntly, the 10,000 new recruits previously entrusted to Shui Tu for training were still mostly former shepherds fresh from the grasslands. Although they had done plenty of drills and push-ups daily in Tuohai Prefecture, they were still dressed in tattered old clothes, and their weapons were a motley assortment. If not for military discipline holding them together, they would have looked no different from famine refugees if thrown into a crowd. But now, it was a whole new ball game. You had brought them proper uniforms. This wasn't just standard military issue. It was essential for putting on an impressive display in parades. Setting aside combat effectiveness for a moment, just the sight of tens of thousands of men in identical attire, a vast, dark mass standing there, that imposing presence, tisk tisk, wouldn't that strike fear into anyone? It was the familiar crimson uniform paired with black summer cloth boots. As for the fur-lined winter boots, they wouldn't be needed in this southern region, so that was an expense spared. The armor worn over the uniforms was the same standard as other garrisons, all lamellar, armor woven from steel plates. The mass-produced plates, churned out by the clank, clank, clank of wind-powered stamping presses, were plentiful, enough for every soldier in the Han Tribe's tens of thousands strong army to have a set. As for the more advanced mountain pattern, scale armor and fish scale armor, those were the exclusive skins for high-ranking officers, not mass-produced but meticulously crafted, and the Han Tribe had enough skilled artisans for that. There was certainly no shortage of weapons. Cold arms like sabers, spears, swords, and halberds, thanks to the water-powered forge hammers, were churned out like dumplings. The long shafts of these weapons were made directly from the thorns of man-eating trees, eco-friendly and practical. The most labor-intensive items were still bows and crossbows. However, ever since the Han Tribe produced its first batch of Shenbi Crossbows, powerful crossbows, and recurve composite bows, production had never ceased. With sufficient materials, the bow and crossbow workshops in Hanyang City could churn out 5,000 to 6,000 units a year. Accumulated over 3 years, this was more than enough to equip the current forces, especially since not everyone needed to be an archer, and that was just the number of military-issue bows and crossbows. If you counted the simple longbows crafted by common folk in their own homes, almost every household had 1 or 2 hanging on their walls. Much of the Han Tribe's territory had been reclaimed from forests and mountains, and newly established. Settlements frequently had trouble with wild animals. To enable the common people to protect themselves, you hadn't implemented any strict weapons control. In such circumstances, longbows being easy to make, a serviceable one could be fashioned in a few hours, naturally became the people's first choice for self-defense. Finally, there were the shields. The Han Tribe's shields were also practical. Simple oak shields. Oak is a hardwood. and a 2.5-centimeter thick oak plank was enough to withstand most arrows and stone axes of this era, and could even offer some protection against bronze javelins. However, javelins had a limited range. Even if every enemy soldier had arms of superhuman strength, they could at best hurl them about 50 meters. You simply didn't believe any javelin thrower foolish enough to try could survive the Han tribe's double barrage of long-range artillery and mid-range archery to get within 50 meters of your lines. If they actually managed that, the Han tribe wouldn't be far from packing up and going home. Standard uniforms and weapons were quickly distributed. The novel invention of telescopes was also issued down to Zongqi-level officers, company commanders. The Navy was even more lavishly equipped. Besides a personal spyglass for every man, they also received a much larger instrument, a tripod-mounted telescope. This was the small astronomical telescope with a 10-centimeter aperture, modified by the Research Institute according to your specifications, boasting a maximum magnification of 600 times. Mounted on the stern castle roof, it could even make the slight curvature of the sea horizon clearly visible. This meant that as soon as an enemy ship showed even the tip of its mast above the horizon, it could be spotted. Truly a game-changing device for maritime reconnaissance. Of course, this treasure performed best on the open, boundless sea. And with obstructions everywhere, seeing the curvature of the ground. Dream on! It was pretty good for looking at the stars, though. When the surrendered grassland nomad soldiers donned their brand new uniforms and gleaming armor, the great weight in their hearts finally lifted. Most of them had been forcibly conscripted by Mo Du, enticed by all sorts of grand promises to attack Kaiyuan Prefecture, although they themselves had harbored some hope of getting lucky, perhaps even thinking of plundering Kaiyuan, after personally witnessing the Han tribe's military might, which was like divine punishment. Any flickering embers of resistance had long been thoroughly extinguished. In this respect, the grassland nomads were different from other tribes. They truly admired strength. The Han tribe had beaten them into submission, so they accepted their defeat. Even so, it didn't mean they were eager to keep fighting. When they previously heard they would have to go to war alongside the Han tribe's army, they had felt uneasy. Would the Han tribe, like that bastard Mo Du, use them as cannon fodder? This question had loomed like a dark cloud over the hearts of these surrendered nomad warriors. After all, the disparity in treatment between them and the Han tribe's regular soldiers was plain to see. It was like night and day. But now, they were completely reassured, because they too were wearing equipment identical to that of the Han tribe's regular army. Gaesang, look at the material of this uniform, tisk tisk. It's so much better than the cloth our tribe bought in Kaiyuan City last year. And they gave us 2 sets each. The Han tribe is truly generous. If we had to make this ourselves, how many sheep would we have to sell to afford it? A teenage soldier, clumsily putting on his uniform, couldn't help showing off to his companion. The young man, called Gaesang, slightly older, was calm and composed. He handed a cloth band of the same color as the uniform to the teenager, saying, "Hu Yang here, help me tie up my hair." Hu Yang fastened his own belt, took the hairband, and while helping Gaesang tie his hair, asked curiously, "What's wrong? You don't look very happy. Don't you like this stuff the Han tribe gave us?" "No, it's not that. I just..." breathed a sigh of relief. Gaesang exhaled. "Wearing these good clothes and that dazzling armor means we're about to become regular soldiers. No longer cannon fodder without even a decent uniform to our names. I just feel like there's something to look forward to now. At least dressed in this fine equipment, the Han tribe definitely won't use us as cannon fodder. Otherwise, what a waste. Even if the Han tribe is rich, they wouldn't do something so foolish that harms others without benefiting themselves, right?" Gaesang said with deep feeling. "That's true." The young Hu Yang grinned, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "But I'm thinking about something different. Who exactly are the Han tribe taking us to fight?" "Probably the Shin tribe," Gaesang replied. Although he didn't know the Han tribe's true intentions, he had guessed pretty accurately. Modu has already been crushed by the Han tribe. All that's left is Modu's accomplice, the Shin tribe, who are still doing fine. That being the case, the Han tribe will definitely want revenge. However, their knowledge was limited. They didn't even know exactly where the Shin tribe was located, only that it was a place that produced gleaming white salt and lush green bamboo. Night deepened. Tangji lay in bed, gazing at the twinkling stars outside her window. Her mind still occupied with matters concerning the Han tribe and the Tang tribe. According to Tang Yao, if the Tang tribe merged with the Han tribe, not only would they suffer no losses, but they could also get on the fast track to development. The most crucial point was that the Tang clan would remain the Tang clan. Their ancestral tablets wouldn't need to be changed. A chief of a homogeneous tribe would probably die before handing their people over, even if it meant being reduced to leading just a minor clan. But for an alliance like the Tang tribe, formed by several clans banded together, the situation was different. As the head of the Tang tribe, Tangji looked at the bigger picture for the entire alliance, not the petty gains of any single clan. Besides, their chief was chosen by everyone. It wasn't some hereditary iron rice bowl position passed down through generations. Every chief had to figure out how to lead the tribe towards a better future, or they'd be replaced in the next term. Of course, being the chief certainly gave one an advantage, like a pavilion by the water getting the moonlight first, when it came to grooming their own children for leadership. Therefore, whether considering the overall situation or improving the common people's standard of living, the benefits of joining the Han tribe far outweighed the drawbacks. Thinking about all the novel things Tang Yao had described, and her comfortable life in the Han tribe for the past 6 months, Tangji already had a pretty good idea of what to do. 2 days later, as the sun slanted west, a fleet of ships sailed unhurriedly from the open sea into the Tuohai prefecture docks. Among them, 2 3-masted cargo ships were the very ones Da Shu had sent to pick up Shoya. To keep a low profile, you didn't go to the docks to hold any sort of welcoming ceremony. Whether it was the Tang tribe on the opposite shore or the locals in Tuohai prefecture, they all just assumed it was another ordinary batch of cargo ships arriving. Little did they know that the envoy who had represented the Han tribe in a foreign land for nearly 3 years had finally returned. Shoya was dressed like a cargo ship captain, followed by several sailors wearing woven bamboo hats. One of them was an old man, scrawny and tanned as dark as charcoal, but his eyes were exceptionally bright. A goatee hung down to his chest, exuding an air of vigor despite his age. Behind the old man were several sturdy, able-bodied men. They weren't particularly burly, but the arms and chests visible beneath their vests showed clearly defined muscles, marking them as men of strength. They maintained a low profile all the way, following Shoya directly to the official government compound in Tuohai prefecture. Just as they stepped through the gate, they saw a young man in a brocade robe, cloth boots and a black gauze cap with gold gilding, standing in the courtyard with a smile, waiting for them. The moment Shoya, leading the group, saw you, he froze. On the spot, his body stiffening abruptly. He rubbed his eyes hard, and after confirming he wasn't mistaken, he dropped to the ground with a thud and began kowtowing deeply, his wails so loud they could shake heaven and earth. Shuya pays his respects to the chief. Chief, I've finally seen you, venerable sir. Woo, woo, woo. Get up, get up. What are you crying for? So many people are watching. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? It had been nearly 3 years. Seeing this fellow, one of the first to follow you. Again, you also felt quite emotional. Speaking, you strode forward quickly and helped the sobbing Shoya to his feet. This was an old brother from your original tribe, a founding elder of the Han tribe with a pure and loyal background, the biological son of the Han tribe's chief before last. He might even be distantly related to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have entrusted him with such an important mission. Chief, Shuya has finally returned alive to see you. It's a pity, though, that it's not at our home in Hanyang City. Pulled up by you, Shuya hastily wiped his tears, a hint of regret in his voice. Hey, that's not the right way to put it. You smiled and patted his arm. Tuohai prefecture is Han tribe territory now, too. What's the difference between being here and being home? If you really miss your wife, I'll send for her right away. Tuohai Prefecture has been developing for over half a year. The infrastructure is mostly in place. You can live a good life here too. If you're willing, I'll even build you a big villa here as your reward. Isn't this too much? Although I believe I've made some contributions, I don't deserve such a grand reward. From the chief. However, if my family could come to Tuohai Prefecture, that would naturally be wonderful. It's just that with the current situation, it might be a bit inconvenient. Let's wait until next year. At that time, any ordinary residence the chief arranges for us will be fine. Forget about a big house. Shuya's eyes lit up at the thought of bringing his family over. But he also knew that with the attack on Zhudao Island imminent, and Tuohai Prefecture being a frontline base, even though the flames of war certainly wouldn't reach here, he still didn't want his family to come just yet. Moreover, his agreement to have you bring his family to Tuohai Prefecture was part of another calculation. Having spent nearly 3 years on Zhudao Island, Shoya knew better than anyone what a mess it was over there. Even if the Han Tribe successfully conquered Zhudao Island this time, you wouldn't just let him retire. He'd most likely be pressed into service as an official on Zhudao Island. Once he became an official, it could be for several more years. If he didn't bring his family over then, he'd see even less of them. What's the big deal about building a house? Seeing him relent, you made the decision on the spot. Since you agree, they can come over next spring. It'll take some time to build the house anyway. Don't worry, if we can pacify Zhudao Island this time, you'll definitely get top credit. With such a great contribution, if you don't even get a decent house, what will others think of me as a chief? Then, Shuya thanks the chief, Shuya said, about to bow again, but you grabbed his arm, preventing him. He looked at you in confusion, only to see you smiling at him, your gaze subtly flicking towards the people behind him. He understood immediately. Forgive me, chief. In my excitement, I forgot about important matters. Shuya slapped his forehead and quickly turned, pulling the old man from behind him to his side. Chief, let me introduce you. This is Elder Jiao Shi, the chieftain of the Fishing Tribe from eastern Zhudao Island. He has come specially to pay you a visit. The Han Tribe was going to make a move on Zhudao Island. Hearing these words from your mouth, Jiao Shi knew this was no joke. So the Han Tribe was dead set on doing it. Jiao Shi's brows furrowed into a knot as he began to deliberate. The root cause of this matter, whether from Commander Shin's side or the Han Tribes, frankly had little to do with their fishing tribe. What he was primarily pondering was what impact this move by the Han Tribe would have on their fishing tribe. Also, your proposal for their fishing tribe to join forces against Commander Shin, was it reliable? What would be the consequences if they succeeded, or if they failed? Seeing his deeply troubled expression as he racked his brains, you couldn't help but chuckle. You clapped your hands and someone efficiently placed a map, a sand table model, and an exquisite model ship on the table. Old chieftain, please look, you said, pointing to the sand table. This is the easternmost part of Zhudao Island, south of Yashan, a large expanse of flat, fertile land. Although it's currently overgrown with weeds and woods, with a little tidying up, it can be transformed into farmland no worse than that of the food tribe. There's also a tributary of the Qingshui River here, so fresh water won't be an issue. Moreover, by following this tributary, one can access the main channel of the Qingshui River, allowing boat travel to almost every corner of Zhudao Island. Now look over here at the coast, this area at the foot of Yashan. The mountain ends here. The black cliffs of Yashan plunge straight into the sea. There's no beach, and the water is deep enough. Even the shallowest parts are over 20 meters. Any of our Han Tribe's current ships can dock there easily. Such a natural harbor is a godsend for developing coastal fishing. If the fishing tribe could be equipped with a fleet of sailboats for fishing, with fertile land and fresh water for growing crops at their back, it would be difficult for your tribe not to prosper. You gestured for the few men from the fishing tribe to gather around the sand table, pointing to the area representing Chaoyang Prefecture and lavishing praise upon it, until their eyes shone with extraordinary interest, as if they had discovered a treasure. "Chieftain, isn't this the land south of our tribe's territory?" one of Jiao Shi's men whispered as a reminder. "It is indeed much as the Han chief described. The key thing is there's hardly anyone there now. Turning it into farmland won't be easy, I fear." The implied meaning was clear, carrying a hint of, the Han tribe isn't reliable. In other words, don't mind the Han tribe's extravagant claims. Isn't it just a piece of unwanted wasteland? What does it matter if the Han tribe gives it to us or not? We could go and occupy it ourselves. It's lying fallow anyway, and no one's stopping us. To put it bluntly, you, the Han tribe, were merely presenting Buddha with borrowed flowers, making a gift of something that wasn't yours. However, someone nearby immediately voiced a different opinion. Another middle-aged man from the fishing tribe said, "That's true, but if we don't have the Han tribe's backing, even if we move there, do you think Commander Shin will leave us alone? They'd love nothing more than for our tribe to never recover." Another man, with a more profound way of thinking, spoke up. "I actually think these are secondary issues. You haven't grasped the crux of the matter at all." As soon as he said this, the eyes of the other companions who had come along, including Chieftain Jiao Shi, instantly focused on him. "What do you mean by that?" Jiao Shi asked, puzzled. "The key is, if the Han tribe is going to fight Commander Shin, what are their chances of winning? If they can't win and we eagerly go to help, wouldn't we be risking our entire tribe?" The man analyzed. Another crucial point. Even if the Han tribe wins, do they plan to occupy Zhudao Island long-term, or are they just seeking revenge to beat up Commander Shin, force an apology and some compensation, and then just dust off their hands and leave? If the Han tribe withdraws its forces afterwards, will Commander Shin and the elders of the other major clans spare those of us who helped? Will the Han tribe still care about us then? If not, no matter how many benefits they give us, Commander, Shin and those elders will probably take them all back. And by then, whether our fishing tribe can even continue to exist will be a serious question. Hearing this, the men from the fishing tribe couldn't help but nod. Indeed, they had previously been focused only on immediate benefits and hadn't considered the long-term implications for their tribe's future. Chieftain Jiao Shi, having heard this, also had a fairly good grasp of the situation. Just as he was about to ask you something more, you spoke first. "I wonder what the old chieftain thinks of this ship." You pointed to the model ship. "This is a new type of trawler recently developed by my Han tribe. It's 22 meters long, 4 meters wide, with a fore and aft rig on 2 masts and a molded depth of 3 meters. Inside, there are 5 watertight compartments, 1 live fish well, and 1 iced fish hold. It can carry 40 tons of fish per voyage. If the fishing tribe is willing to act together with the Han tribe this time, the Han tribe can directly gift you 4 such ships as an introductory present for our friendly cooperation." The fishing boat you were referring to was the model ship your personal guard had just brought in. It was also the Han tribe's first professional fishing vessel specifically designed for fishing, the Fishing Type-1 Trawler. Fishing boats were a special category among vessels, and the Han tribe had long been planning their development. This was its first public debut, and although it was only a model, it was enough to attract attention. This ship model was placed next to the model of the 3-masted cargo ship, making it easy to compare its approximate size. Most importantly, the layout of this ship was different from all the ships the Han tribe had built before, exuding an air of unconventional professionalism. Because it was a trawler, the net had to be towed behind the stern. Thus, the traditional stern castle had been moved near the bow. In its place at the stern was a gantry-like frame and a manually operated winch and derrick crane that could be rotated. This device was specifically for hauling the net. A large net full of fish simply couldn't be pulled aboard by manpower alone, making this crane essential equipment. The ship also had 2 accompanying vertical cargo holds, One could store seawater to keep the caught fish alive and fresh on board. Next to it was an iced hold, where ice could be placed in advance to chill fish that died easily. These two methods, used in tandem, aimed to preserve the freshness of the sea fish as much as possible. Although Jiao Shi didn't know how effective it would be in practice, just by looking at its design, he knew this ship was definitely impressive. However, he also knew in his heart, as clear as day, that the Han tribe wouldn't just give them 4 such excellent ships for free. "I wonder how the Han chief requires our tribe to cooperate," Jiao Shi asked, clearly tempted, a barely perceptible eagerness in his voice. "The fishing tribe will dispatch troops to act with us. Seeing the time was ripe, you laid your cards on the table. 4 ships plus the land I mentioned earlier, in exchange for you providing 2,000 men who will accept the unified command of our Han tribe." "Provide 2,000 men to help the Han tribe fight?" Jiao Shi and the few attendants from the fishing tribe nearly jumped out of their skins. What kind of joke was this? How many people did their fishing tribe have in total? And the Han tribe was demanding 2,000 able-bodied young men to go fight Commander Shin? This was real combat, with swords and spears, not hauling bricks at a construction site. Working for the Han tribe might wear them out, but if it meant getting 4 large ships, they could grit their teeth and accept it. But warfare was a life-and-death business. Who could guarantee they were one of the chosen ones and would return from the battlefield in one piece? To put it bluntly, the Han tribe's condition was to trade 4 ships for the lives of 2,000, their kinsmen. Seeing the fishing tribe members agitated and looking as if they were about to flip the table, you tapped the table, thump, thump, and said calmly, "Old chieftain, there's no need to get upset. You should know that ships like these are not easy to build. Even Commander Shin finds it difficult to purchase ships. And what I just told you was a gift. You should understand the weight of that word, shouldn't you? Furthermore, don't rush. To give an answer, you can go back and discuss it thoroughly. This is a golden opportunity for the fishing tribe's development, one that comes once in 1,000 years. I hope you will seize it. This ship model and this telescope are introductory gifts from our Han tribe to all of you. Don't worry, these are free of charge. Also, tomorrow we will be holding a military parade in Tuohai Prefecture. I hope all of you will grace us with your presence. Perhaps at the ceremony you will find the answers you are looking for." Having said this, you rose to leave. Just as you turned, Jiao Shi suddenly called out to you, "Han Chief, I have one more question." "Oh, what is it?" You stopped. "I wonder, what is the Han tribe's objective in attacking the Shin tribe this time? Do you intend to completely overthrow them? Or just fight until they submit and surrender? Will the Han tribe take control of Zhudao Island?" Hearing his question, the corners of your mouth lifted slightly, and you replied evasively, "If Commander Shin and the elders of the Shin tribe were all to suffer accidental deaths, and no one else was willing to step up and manage the affairs of Zhudao Island, then we Han tribe wouldn't mind incorporating Zhudao Island into our territory." With that, you walked away coolly without a backward glance. Shu Da, Shui Tu, and the others followed closely, leaving in a rush. Only Shou Ya remained in the room, accompanying the utterly bewildered members of the fishing tribe. Once you all left, the atmosphere in the meeting room instantly lightened. The few men from the fishing tribe began to chatter amongst themselves. One fellow held a telescope to his eye, exclaiming, "Wow," and "Holy moly." Others cradled the model of the Fishing Type-1 Trawler, comparing its size to the model of the 3-masted sailing ship next to it. Only Jiao Shi remained seated, still frowning, deep in thought. Although your earlier words hadn't been definitive, their meaning was already quite clear. You had essentially predicted the annihilation of Commander Shin and his elders. He didn't know where you got this confidence, even saying things like, "If no one is willing to manage it, the Han tribe wouldn't mind taking over Zhudao Island, effectively making Zhudao Island part of the Han tribe." Wasn't that just stating the obvious? If the Han tribe truly had the ability to wipe out the Grand Commander and the elders in one fell swoop, holding such a strong hand, Who would dare to challenge them? This amounted to saying that the Han tribe was already dead set on taking over Zhudao Island. In that case, the matter of sending troops to help was indeed something to consider. However, the price offered by the Han tribe still didn't seem enticing enough. Trading 4 fishing boats for 2,000 able-bodied young men to risk their lives for the Han tribe, was this deal worth it? Before he could figure it out, the same person who had earlier asked, "Will the Han tribe occupy Zhudao Island?" voiced the question on his mind. "Han envoy, your tribe wants to exchange 4 ships for 2,000 of our young men. Isn't this price a bit too low? 2,000 young men, even for our entire tribe, is definitely not a small number. Our fishing tribe isn't very populous to begin with." Xinhua smiled upon hearing this and explained unhurriedly, "My good man, what you said isn't entirely correct. Our chief just now mentioned not only 4 ships, but also this piece of fertile coastal land. This, it seems, is worth more than 4 ships, wouldn't you say?" One of the men fiddling with a telescope nearby was about to retort when Xinhua raised his hand to interrupt him. "Are you going to say that it's not Han tribe land? That you can move there yourselves whether we agree or not? But is that really the case? If you truly had that capability, why are you still holed up in that rocky corner of Yashan?" This directly choked the man into silence. He opened his mouth, but ultimately said nothing, but Xinhua didn't forget to twist the knife. "Besides, you seem to have forgotten something. From the moment our chief decided to seek revenge on the Shin tribe, Zhudao Island was already Han tribe land. Now that was a Bachi Chelo, overflowing with domineering aura, statement. Far more direct than your earlier subtle pronouncements, and it thoroughly confirmed the Han tribe's true intentions. Chieftain Jiao Shi of the Fishing Tribe was no fool. The so-called revenge was merely a pretext for war. The land and population of Zhudao Island were the Han tribe's real targets. In that case, if the Han tribe truly had the ability to take Zhudao Island, now was the crucial moment to pick a side. If they could be the first to establish ties with the Han tribe, then when the Han tribe ruled Zhudao Island in the future, their fishing tribe could become the tribe closest to the center of power, and their tribe's development and growth could experience a surge. Perhaps they could even seize this opportunity to surpass those deeply entrenched, established clans on Zhudao Island, like the main families of the great elders. However, someone nearby still felt a sense of imbalance. The fellow holding the ship model, comparing it to the model of the 3-masted sailing ship, noted that although the fishing boat wasn't small in proportion, the sensory impact of the model ship simply couldn't compare to the shock of seeing a real ship. "Since the Han tribe is so powerful, why are they so stingy with us? This boat is half the size of the sailboat we came on. If they gave us those big ships with 3 sails, 4 of them would be about right." Hearing this, Xinhua couldn't help but chuckle twice. "My good man, do you know how many people it takes to operate that 3-masted cargo ship? And how much manpower and resources are needed to maintain such a vessel? Even if our Han tribe really gave you 4 3-masted ships, firstly, they're not suitable for fishing, only for transport. And secondly, I reckon you couldn't afford to maintain 4 such behemoths right now." Maintain a ship? What does that mean? The others, hearing Xinhua's words, also gathered around curiously. "Doesn't the Han envoy often say that Han tribe sailboats don't eat or drink and can move freely just by relying on the sea breeze? What does this maintaining a ship mean? Do we have to feed the ship grain or something?" "Not at all." Xinhua waved his hand. "Sailboats indeed don't need fodder, but they do require manpower to operate. I don't know how many people are needed to maintain these large 3-masted ships, so let me tell you about the 2-masted fishing boat our chief just showed you. A boat like this, even though it's only 22 meters long, requires at least a captain and a first mate, 8 or 9 sailors to handle the sails, a lookout, a helmsman, and 1 or 2 cooks to prepare meals. And that's just the crew needed to keep the boat sailing normally. Then there are the fishermen. Look at that winch and crane at the stern and those 2 large cargo holds. Just the work of casting and hauling the nets and moving the catch in and out of the holds, probably. Requires more than 10 people working together, and even then, other sailors might need to help. And the trawl nets. Trawl nets are very large. A single boat needs at least 2, right? One for regular use, one as a spare. The maintenance of these 2 nets, repairing and drying them, would require the women on shore. The landed catch also needs people on shore to process it. Then there's the ice in the hold, the sails and rigging on the masts. All these miscellaneous things added together. I reckon you wouldn't have enough manpower in a single village to support the normal fishing operations of just one such boat. After Shoya finished speaking, the men from the fishing tribe couldn't help but stare wide-eyed. Just to ensure one boat could go out fishing normally required so many people? This was too exaggerated. If the boat were twice as big, it might really be as Shoya said. The entire fishing tribe wouldn't be able to afford to maintain more than a few such vessels. Shuya had once told Commander Shin and the other elders that shipbuilding was a massive undertaking, involving almost every manufacturing sector of the Han tribe, from logging and carpentry to mining, metallurgy, forging, and then to agriculture and textiles. Every aspect had to keep pace. One person makes nails and anchors, you make the keel and hull, I make the sails and ropes. Everyone contributes their part, and only then can a usable ship be assembled. Little did they know that shipbuilding was difficult, but maintaining a ship was even harder. 3 days, whoosh, they passed just like that. Early on the 4th day, the Han tribe's luxury cruise liner, transport ship, was already docked punctually on the opposite shore, specifically waiting for the VIP delegation from the Tang Tribe. This time, it wasn't just the Tang Ji and Tang Yao sisters, the leaders of the various clans within the Ye. Tang Tribe had also come. After all, your empty-handed wolf snaring. Ah no, your plan to borrow troops still depended on their approval, didn't it? Scrounge some from the Fishing Tribe, gather some more from the Tang Tribe and the troop. Shortage would pretty much be filled. You had no time to wait around in Tuohai Prefecture. You directly brought those potential assets from the Fishing Tribe onto the ship, planning to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Pick up the Tang Tribe's tour group and head straight for the military parade site, the army camp, Tuohai Prefecture. That tiny little place couldn't possibly accommodate an army of over 10,000 raring to go. Oh no, raring to train. The large plain south of the city, with its open view and proximity to the river, was perfect. Just right for your unique navy, the Fubo Guard, to make an appearance as well. A comprehensive, amphibious, 3-dimensional shock and awe, all arranged. Of course, this was purely your advanced, modern man's wild speculation. In the eyes of the Tang and Fishing Tribe natives, just the Han Tribe's dazzlingly armored heavy infantry and cavalry were enough to give them a run for their money. Oh no, to make them realize just how formidable the Han Tribe was. Thump, 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 thump. The Tang Tribe delegation, with their own built-in background music, led by Tang Ji, gracefully boarded the review ship. The sea position naturally was yours. That attire, your youthful and robust physique, your wise yet somewhat Badao Zongkai, domineering CEO gaze, the luxurious gold-trimmed coronet glinting in the sunlight, the sword at your waist, symbolizing power and authority, plus the aura of a natural leader cultivated from long being in a high position. To him, leadership qualities, you were undeniably the focus. Tangji's mind was working like an abacus. So this is the Han tribe's chief, my niece Tang Yao's sweetheart, and in the future, perhaps even the head of our Tang tribe, she quickly performed a curtsy according to Han tribe etiquette. You in turn gave a slight bow of your clasped hands. Public relations, you know, had to be done right. After all, the Tang tribe wasn't a pushover either. Equal exchange, equal exchange. Han Chief, young and promising, I've long admired you. Here's to a pleasant cooperation, and please look after us. Tang Ji delivered a standard set of business pleasantries, though it was unclear if Tang Yao had prepped her beforehand. You glanced sideways at Tang Yao. The young lady was sneaking peeks at you. In such a public setting, it wasn't convenient for in-depth communication, So you turned back to Tang Ji and smiled. Chief Tang, you're too kind. Our two families cooperating. That's a win-win. Sharing technology, progressing together. That's why I specially invited you today to see the Han tribe's muscle. Perhaps we can even discuss some other deep cooperation? Oh? Other cooperation? Tang Ji had an expression that said, "You seem to be kidding me." She turned to look at Tang Yao, her eyes full of question marks. What's going on? Is there such a thing? Tang Yao also looked bewildered, shaking her head. I have no idea. You, however, remained calm. The matter of borrowing troops couldn't be rushed. If you didn't let them witness the Han tribe's iron fist firsthand, asking directly would diminish the effect. Those from the Fishing Tribe were a prime example. So, inspect the goods first, then place the order. There's no rush for cooperation. Our Han tribe has just established several new garrisons, and today is a good opportunity to show them off. Chief Tang, why don't you first review the Han armies? Prowess with me, you said with a smile, revealing your true purpose. Although Tang Ji was completely bewildered since she was already here, she couldn't have come for nothing. So she nodded in agreement. At your nod, Shoya gave the order. Hoist the sails. The three-masted, multi-decked ship serving as a temporary review platform slowly drifted downstream. They hadn't gone far, perhaps only 10 minutes, when a vast dark mass appeared on the water ahead. Good heavens, a huge fleet. The Han tribe's largest four-masted behemoth was among them, looking majestic. Tang Ji only knew this ship was enormous and had transported people before. What it was specifically for, she was completely in the dark. Tang Yao had seen it carrying large cannons, but its purpose remained a mystery. You didn't explain, letting them guess. Let them guess all they want. As the review ship sailed past the fleet, the army camp on the west bank of the Great River came into distant view. Only then did everyone realize that such a Han tribe secret base was hidden near Tuohai Prefecture. It was just that this base had a somewhat strange style. There were no proper houses, only tents. A wooden fence encircled the tents, and outside, the fence near the river was a large, bare, empty space devoid of any grass, clearly artificially shaved clean. On the empty ground, groups of people in identical work clothes were doing strange things. Not farming, not hunting, not engaging in production, but rather it looked like they were playing. One group chased a ball back and forth. Some practiced archery, their targets being haystacks. More horsemen practiced cutting and thrusting on horseback, their targets also scarecrows. If you said they were herding, there were only horses, no cattle or sheep. It was truly bizarre. Those from the Fishing Tribe, after your patient guidance yesterday, had somewhat figured it out. This group of people was most likely the muscle you were preparing to use to beat up Commander Shin, but weren't fights usually settled by rallying. People on the spot. The Han tribe, on the other hand, was supporting such a large group of idle men. Wouldn't that hinder grain production? Chieftain Jiao Shi was thoroughly perplexed. Could it be that the Han tribe was about to start a war immediately? But they were just discussing it with us yesterday. Things weren't even settled on our end, and they were already starting on theirs. The more he thought, the more confused he became. You cleared your throat and, pointing at the camp, declared with soaring pride, "Everyone, this is a part of our Han tribe's standing army. 10,000 of them have recently completed their reorganization. They are the ones who defeated the enemy's allied force of 60,000 on the grasslands." The people from the Tang and Fishing tribes, upon hearing this, nearly had their eyeballs pop out. These guys, who looked like red sheep running on a green meadow, had defeated tens of thousands of enemies. Were you kidding? Talk is cheap. You quite enjoyed the admiring gazes of the crowd and nodded to Daishu beside you. Begin. Daishu immediately waved his hand, and the personal guards got busy. Horns blared, war drums thundered, and flag bearers vigorously waved large banners, sending Morse code signals towards the army camp. Shui Tu, who had been itching for action, grinned when he heard the commotion and immediately roared at his herald. "Beat the drums, blow the horns, assemble!" Instantly, drums and horns sounded throughout the camp, echoing the signals from the review ship in a call and response. The fleet that had just passed by also echoed with the same sounds from the rear, quickly forming a long line and heading this way. In the eyes of the tour group, as soon as you sent the signal, the camp immediately responded, the sound of drums and horns growing louder. On the 2 wooden watchtowers at the camp gate, men waved large, colorful flags, looking like they were performing some shamanistic dance. Those red-clad men who had been herding sheep on the open ground seemed to hear a charge signal and sprinted madly towards the camp. At first, they were scattered, like a frightened flock of sheep, but by the time they reached the camp gate, they had already converged into a formidable, red torrent. The war drums beat a steady, specific rhythm, and the horns continued to blare. But on the empty ground outside the camp, in the blink of an eye, not a single figure remained. They had run faster than rabbits. Han Chief, what are they? Tang Ji was utterly bewildered. Just a moment ago, you said they were elite warriors. How could they all disappear the moment the signal sounded? Don't panic, you smiled. Enigmatically. They are assembling. Chief Tang, please wait a moment. The main event is about to begin. With that, you turned to look towards the camp. Daishu understood immediately, and had his personal guards distribute single-tube telescopes to each distinguished guest, the latest high-tech, so they could see clearly. Everyone took these rare items, and under the guidance of the personal guards, clumsily learned how to use them. Many experienced the 1,000-mile eye for the first time and wowed on the spot. Tang Ji and Chieftain Jiao Shi, one a tribal leader, the other keenly aware that this matter was closely related to his own survival. Both held their telescopes, staring intently at the camp. In their circular field of vision, the red-robed warriors rushed into the tent area, swarming in, and then swarmed out again after a short while. When they emerged, their red robes were covered by a layer of gleaming silver iron armor, and they were fully equipped with their weapons. Then, these transformed warriors quickly ran to assemble under the camp's flagpole, forming neat, orderly, square formations as if they were copy-pasted. This speed of changing equipment, this neatness of formation, was simply dazzling. Bear in mind, from the moment the assembly call sounded in the camp until now, only about 5 minutes had passed. After 5 minutes, the third round of drumming ceased. The soldiers, previously scattered, were now all fully armored and equipped, their gleaming iron armor reflecting the sunlight so brightly it was hard to keep one's eyes open, all arrayed in formation under the great banners. A moment later, even the most complexly equipped cavalry were fully attired and assembled in formation on the flanks of the infantry, looking majestic and imposing. With the entire army assembled, Xue Tu, now clad in fish-scale general's armor, mounted his horse, roared an order to his personal troops, and led the forces surging out of the camp, heading straight for the open ground by the riverbank. The army within the camp, closely following the commander's banner, marched towards the riverbank with perfectly synchronized steps. Orders were obeyed instantly and precisely. As the officers would say, this was the Han tribe's exclusive secret to achieving victory with fewer numbers.